All right, year 33 MFL members. This is your week 13 video update and week 14 preview, and things are getting pretty decided. I got to be honest, and that's been the way over 33 years. It usually works. Is if you just kind of give it time, let these things go, um, they'll sort of sort themselves out. So. Um, Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to say is even though West Canaan defeated Big D, you will see that here, 137 to 132. There was a previous matchup with these two earlier in the season, and so I went through and I checked out a lot of tiebreaker scenarios, and believe it or not, Big D won the first matchup, so they split their season matchups, which means they are going to go to total points on the season. And the team with the edge on that is Big D by about 42 points. Now that can change if West Canaan has a hot week this week and outscores Big D by that amount of points. Number one, that probably means that West Canaan is going to win and they'll be the number one seed anyway. But on the off chance that Big D wins and West Canaan loses, assuming that West Canaan still didn't outscore Big D, then Big D can still be the number one seed. So we'll recheck all that, of course, going into next week. Because again, I've said things leading into a playoff scenario, and then at the end of the season, stranger things have happened. Three teams ended up tied or some weird thing, and all of a sudden it turned into something else because there was another factor that I hadn't considered. So just know this. There was some thought that if West Canaan won this, they had the number one seed wrapped up. And let's be honest, if they win next week, they do. But if they lose next week, they definitely do not have it tied up. There is some other circumstances that can come into play, considering Big D won earlier in the year and also holds the season points tiebreaker. So I would strongly recommend everybody go check these things out on the app and make sure I'm not looking at something wrong, because there's a chance I will. I'm also battling a little bit of a cold, so if I sound a little weird, that's why. And, I'm just going to power through. That's pretty much what's going on here. So, big matchup there. West Canaan beat Big D. Pretty much in the driver's seat for the number one seed. Win and get a number one seed and possibly a bye. We'll get to that here in a minute. But the two seed is pretty much assured will not have a bye, because we are going to have at least 7 teams in. We might have 8. So we'll see how that goes. On the surprise agenda, Hoopton has completed the season sweep of the Tulsa Quakenados. And if the Quakenados happen to lose next week and Hoopton happens to win, Hoopton can jump ahead of them in the standings. So I'm not even going to look at seeds 3 through 7 or 3 through 8 yet. Again, we're gonna wait for the week 14 games to sort of sort themselves out. I think in the end, like I said, that's just the easier way to do it. If we end up with a bunch of teams at 8 and 6, we got to run through some tiebreakers there. If we run through a bunch of teams at 7 and 7, we got to run through some tiebreakers there. And one of the two or both is very likely. We're going to have to deal with something along those lines. So I got to be honest, I'm as shocked as anybody. Hoopton lost Amon-Ra St. Brown on Thanksgiving Day, and it was looking bleak. But as it turned out, Hoopton scored the most points this week, which I have to say does not bode well necessarily going into next week. So I'm glad Hoopton now at 7 and 6 has kind of got at least a spot locked up, because my statistical analysis generally indicates that that means things probably are not going to go as well next week. So we'll look into some matchups for next week here in a bit. But Hoopton beats Tulsa. Tulsa is in. They do have the kiss of death, and I do think that is still hanging over them by a thread. So Sorry, Tulsa, just the way it goes. But maybe you want to go in as a little bit of a dark horse rather than the favorite. So we'll see how that goes. Here's the Army, who has just been sliding and sliding and sliding. They are in at 7-6, but they are not really haven't been impressing anybody lately. Kind of a narrow loss to Cleveland, who has been hot. And by the way, Cleveland has now clinched a playoff spot. That is your runner-up from last year, so no joke. They know what they're doing, and they're going to be in it. So brace yourself for a Cleveland playoff game. Leavenworth did win against the Gray Squirrels, but it is official now. Both of these teams are out of the running. They will not be in the playoffs, and there will be some consolation rounds for some rookie money, just to kind of keep everybody active. That kind of leads me to a discussion on transactions to the playoffs. I actually don't mind if teams that aren't in the running go grab some free agents or run some waivers, or especially considering this is a deep keeper league, and maybe there's someone out there that you want to kind of keep next year. I would go so far as to say there's no requirement to keep kickers and defenses and stuff like that on your roster. So if you want to pick up some people that you might want to, match bids on or protect for next year, you can. The problem, of course, is if you're not starting kickers and defenses during the consolation rounds, you're less likely to get that rookie money. So there's a give and a take there. What I tend to do is just keep one kicker and one defense, and maybe going into the last week of the season, week 18, where we don't have any games, I will do one last look at some transactions and see if there's some people out there that on IR or whatever that I want to go have on my roster, so I get first refusal on those guys. This is also going to lead us into some of our rules discussion for next year, and I'll save it again for the playoffs. But all of these things, as of now, are legal. So if anyone has a problem with them, let's speak up. Let's put it on paper, and let's make sure we're all on the same page. But there are leagues where the team's not in the playoffs don't get to do any transactions. I think in a redraft that makes sense. I think in a deep keeper or a dynasty that doesn't make as much sense, because I think if you're constantly, evaluating your roster, you should, regardless of what time of the season it is, be able to make some changes, make some decisions. It keeps people engaged. If you're telling people not to be engaged, that seems like a bad sign to me. So I don't know. There's a little philosophical question for everybody. Here is Toledo. They knock out CDs. CDs is also out of it. They really had a rough time of it this year, and definitely looking forward to next year. They'll also have probably the lowest rank in the standings at the end of the year. That's not a guarantee, but it's probably. And that does mean they'll get a little break on some more rookie money. So I assign rookie money based on the standings. And typically the bottom team gets the most, at least to start. But I can tell you now, if you get that most, but then you lose all the consolation matchups, then there's a chance someone who actually finished better than you ends up with more rookie money. It's possible. It happens all the time. So I would encourage CDs just to hang in there and keep setting that lineup and see if you can snag some more rookie money. San Antonio also out of it. They were officially eliminated by the Kansas City Ass Kickers by exactly 0.4 points. That is a heartbreaker. If there's a team, I think, in this league that has just the most heartbreaking luck sometimes at the end of the season, it might be the San Antonio Posse. Eliminated by less than a point. But Kansas City clinches their spot. And San Antonio looks to next year. So here is our standings as of now. West Canaan on top. Big D second. If those two teams end up tied, it is more likely that Big D wins the tiebreaker due to total points because they split in the regular season. If West Canaan wins and goes to 11-3, they're the number one seed and there's no question. to my knowledge, Big D is very unlikely to be lower than the 2 seed because they have a win over Tulsa, and they only played once. So I don't think Tulsa is going to necessarily be able to catch Big D for that 2 seed. Tulsa currently alone in the 3rd spot, but if they lose this week and some of these other teams win that you'll see at 7 and 6, there are 4 of them. We've got a big glom of tiebreakers that we got to figure out, and we'll see how that goes. If we end up with a bunch of teams at 8 and 6, I'll have to walk y'all through that, probably how I determine it. But I've done it many years, and it's not a problem. But it's just much easier after everything sort of shakes out. If we end up with a bunch of teams at 7 and 7, same story, which is also very possible. So just be aware of that. Let's look at the bottom of the standings. And we are going to look at a scenario here whereby there is one team at 6 and 7, the Toledo Tube Stakes, who have been on a little bit of a run lately. I don't know if anyone's paid attention. They can get into the playoffs. They are playing, I feel like it's Kansas City, but let's just go take a look at week 14. They are playing Kansas City. If they beat Kansas City, we will have an 8-team bracket because 8 teams are 7 and 7 or better. There will be no bye weeks, so it doesn't really matter who that top seed is. It'll matter as far as matchups, but it won't matter as far as a bye week goes. If Toledo does not beat Kansas City, then we will have a 7-team bracket, and the top seed will get a bye, just like the NFL. So right now I have the playoffs set for 7 teams because that's who's qualified so far. And what I typically do is just keep it at 7, and then if I have to adjust it back to 6, I will. Or if I have to adjust it up to 8, I will. But right now it's set at 7, and that is going to be a key matchup going into next week. Kansas City can improve their seeding significantly. If they finish 8 and 6, there's going to be some 7 and 7 teams out there, I think, and they can kind of assure themselves a spot above all those. But if Toledo gets in at 7 and 7 and Kansas City loses and goes 7 and 7, there's 2 teams that'll be tied. And then you will have perhaps the Cleveland Crashlets at 7 and 7. It is possible. And you'll possibly have the Army at 7 and 7, which is possible. And you'll also possibly have Hoopton at 7 and 7, which is possible. So, again, if that all happens, we will just adjust the playoff bracket accordingly. And I have a feeling there won't be that many at 7 and 7. There will be a few 8 and 6s. And Tulsa may even jump ahead of everybody and be 9 and 5. That's a strong possibility. So, again, just know that all of these things have been kind of prepared for, and we can try and look ahead. I would just encourage you guys for your particular team, look ahead, to see who you might end up being tied with, and see if you beat them first. And if you did, then that gives you an edge. If you all have a bunch of splits, so if 3 teams end up tied at 7 and 7 and they've all beat each other, then it'll just go to total points for the season. So look at your total points compared to some other people, and you'll know where you're going to land. But I think it's exciting this way. I love it this way, and I think it's made it very competitive. If anyone feels different, like I said, let me know. We'll look into changing it for next year. But I just feel as though if a team goes 7 and 7, it's not an insult to get them in there, even as a 7 or an 8 seed. That just means the league was very competitive, and I have no problem with that. So there's your preview of Week 14, the last week of the regular season. We will go 3 straight weeks in the playoffs. In the past, we were able to do some 2-week playoff matchups, and if we can ever go back to that, man, I love that. The problem is they moved some bye weeks later. We have week 14 byes now. If they would stop all the byes at about week 11, we could do some really cool 2-week playoff matchups. I think that would be cool. But until they change it, which I don't think they're going to, we're probably stuck with what we got now. There is talk of going to an 18 game season. and they might even work in 2 bye weeks per team. So that would be a 20-week season. And if they end up doing that, depending on where that last bye week ends up, we might be able to talk about doing some 2-week playoff matchups. I love those. I think they give you a better feel for, the better team winning. And, it's not so much just getting on a lucky hot streak at the end. But, again, that's all stuff we can talk about. Let's look over here real quick. The best manager this week was Cleveland. He was 95% efficient, which is pretty darn good, especially at this point in the season. Our worst manager, efficiency-wise, was Jeff. And again, I just have to say, I feel like that tells us he has a lot of good players. He has to really kind of decide between really good players on his starting lineup, and if he chooses wrong, it affects his efficiency. It's easier to be efficient if you're top-heavy, as I have said all season. Biggest blowout was Dan over Chance. Narrowest victory was Kansas City over San Antonio, and that ended San Antonio's season. Moment of silence for San Antonio posse. This week's highest score without Amon-Ra St. Brown on Thanksgiving was the Hoopton Corn Jerkers, and I'm just really kind of surprised by that. Maybe this team is going to get hot at the end, which is what you want, and make it happen. I've not had a good vibe all year, but, vibes don't really matter. What matters is the scoreboard. So, Coach Dye, highest score of the week. I will take it. Also, overachiever of the week, Coach Dye. Lowest score was Chance. Below expectation was Jeffrey. And Tulsa Quake NATO's, I don't know, seems a little volatile to me. He's always got good people on the bench. He's always got pretty high score. But if you're not hitting projections now, this seems like a shaky part of the season for that to be the case. Your QB of the week, Mahomes. Your running back of the week, Robinson. Wide receiver of the week, A.J. Brown. And, man, this dude has taken some heat this year. But that's probably a good sign. Here's Brock Bowers. His season is over with the Gray Squirrels, but he's still delivering. There's a kicker. There's a defense. We're not going to worry about them too much. Look at the bench warmers here. Bryce Young. DeAndre Swift, again, a player I have given up on at least 2 years ago. I don't hardly ever pick up DeAndre Swift. Jameson Williams, I saw something on the internet said Jameson Williams on your roster is pretty much just like trying to play the lottery every week. You don't know what you're going to get, and if you start him, he could get 0, and if you bench him, he can get 26.9, and that's what happened here. I do remember letting him go in the silent bidding this year and thinking of that when I did. I was like, I just can't ever pick when he's going to deliver, and I feel like Tulsa's having that problem now. Look at Zach Ertz here, the Grizzled Warrior, tight end bench warmer of the week. There's a kicker, there's a defense. I'll let you guys look at that. Folks, again, looking at the Week 14 matchups there, really just kind of comes down to this Toledo-Kansas City matchup as far as who's in and who's out. And then it kind of depends on how people do, against their opponents this week as far as seeding goes. I will say we don't really have a whole lot of 7 and 6s playing each other, which would have been kind of a interesting going into the playoff seeding battle, that's for sure. I think the Army here has a little bit of a rough draw against West Canaan. They have something to play for. Don't go thinking you've got the number 1 locked up, because you don't. So the Army might be really backing into the playoffs when it comes down to it. And here's Cleveland, who's been hot. Has to go up against Big D, who now again has something they can, if they win and West Canaan loses, then there's a pretty good chance they get that number 1 seed. So something to think about there. Tulsa, again, if they underachieve this week, probably going to blow the doors off somebody next week, and it looks like that might be Leavenworth. So we'll see how that turns out. San Antonio and CD, kind of a play out the string sort of a game, and that's where we're at. So just know once the playoffs start, if you see a consolation matchup, set that lineup. There's 3. Usually, actually, it was three rookie money points. It was 1.5 million on the line, and I keep track of those things, and you can add that to your carryover if you've got any carryover waiver money whenever we get into the rookie auction next year. So really have had a good time with these video updates, and I think in the playoffs it's going to be even more fun. And I thought I would just throw out real quick, I found this binder. I was digging through some stuff. This is my old fantasy football binder, the Steel City Slobberknockers. It's not going to show it, I guess. There it is. I get a blur on the background or whatever. But yeah, that's the Steel City Slobberknockers. That's Barry Sanders on the front. But I have this binder, and it's got some of the old weekly updates in it. Not very many. I was a little disappointed. But it was from our 7th season. And I might share some of these in the playoffs too. There's some pretty good, just for posterity, we might just record those on YouTube so we have them. But I only have like about a half a dozen here. I don't know what happened to all the rest. If anybody has some of those tucked away, let me know. I'll send you an envelope. You can mail them to me. And wouldn't be a bad idea for us to do a historical check-in on the MFL. I did also have a moment in a league, couple of leagues recently, where I inducted a couple of players into my Ring of Honor. And I do think we're so far into this thing, man. All of us probably have at least a player or two that we would induct into our Ring of Honor for our franchise. Maybe even a player that's already gone and retired, or something like that. But I feel like we might do a little bit of a everybody gets to induct one player, toward the end of the year here into their Ring of Honor. And that player does not have to be on your roster now. It can just be a player that you had for a long time or whatever. But it was kind of cool. Of course, one of them I did that this week, and I traded him immediately. So, no loyalty there, I guess. But I'm thinking specifically, I have a NBA franchise, which, by the way, if you're doing any fantasy basketball, man, that's tough. It's very high maintenance, and it's pretty difficult to figure out, to be honest. But it's fun. And I have this team. I'm in my 4th season with this dynasty team, and I've been trying to trade Russell Westbrook all 4 years, and I've never been able to do it. And what I happened to notice this week was he ended up in my lineup for like the 41st time. I keep spreadsheets on stuff because I have, no life. And I thought, man, this guy, I can't keep him out of my lineup because even though he's old, and even though he changes teams every year, and even though nobody likes him apparently because I never can trade him, he just scores. And he scored me 45 points this week, and I decided to, on the league chat, just change his nickname on Sleeper to Ring of Honor member. I know in this league I could probably name off 5 off the top of my head that I would like to name, but we may just go with everybody gets one if they want to, and if you don't want to, that's fine too. But maybe do a little reminiscing on players in the past who we have had on our rosters, and frankly, I'm already excited to go into year 34. I just think this is the best league that I'm in, and it's going to stay that way. So. All right. Well, I powered through the cold and did get through Thanksgiving holiday without any major issues other than just a sniffly nose and a cough. So we will plan on checking in with you throughout December and put together, the playoffs and the year-end wrap-up and all that stuff. I'm hoping I can do some MVP type stuff, some Coach of the Year stuff. Just some things we've never really got to do before, but since we have a video archive now, I thought it'd be a kind of a cool idea to set that up. So I have rambled on long enough. You guys stay safe out there, and I will see you next week.